I saw some of your correspondence.
I did, and I did not talk to the girl on Webber.
Getting referrals from ready to roll and looking at
She wrote the rest or something, she said. And so then we were gonna talk to that.
And I put a person on our thing today, no one responded.
What are you looking for?
So we haven't connected
Okay.
really anywhere for you to see the 400.
I got one coming. I haven't seen it posted today. I got it. Are they willing to reduce one? Or they want to turn it? This one's a bigger one. I mean, it's worth like $450.
Okay.
Well,
So
say we
she's-
have it
Where is it gonna be?
You know, I mean, she's
Maybe.
kind of something that I think would be.
So this is a 4-bedroom, it's really a 5-bedroom. I mean, it's a big house. I don't know.
Okay.
We'll list it at 4. But it's a combo. So it'll be quick.
It will.
But I'll let you know.
Yeah, and it's new.
I'll post it on there.
Steal it if I need it.
We all got to play with it.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy.
Scratch.
That one? Oh, okay. Oh, really? That's great.
We're interested to see. Oh,
Yeah.
so-
Quick.
So? No, I was worried. Jump ones are starting to sit, all these open doors.
The culture committee met before we did, and one of the things they did was make some salad. If anybody wants salad for lunch, there's leftover salad, but it was made by Tommy Thompson, I think.
Yeah.
There's alcohol in it.
Get some red wine vinegar dressing.
Yeah, that's the dressing.
It'll come in a separate way. Together. Happy New Year, huh? Oh, let me know.
I won't do this morning.
Yeah, so I just think
Good for us. Good for us. So. I don't like this. Have you done anything this year? Oh, it was smooth.
Okay, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, we'll get going right on time. A very important guest. We did this on the Zoom basically. Got 2,000 people looking at the conference.
Everybody was kind of worked up there, was it?
Try to make it simple.
You had a regular working. You know about No, yeah. Yeah, that's.
Been exhausting. Yeah. You've been everywhere, anywhere here.
Anywhere. You know what I mean.
Yeah,
I think that's what you need to do.
Got it.
Okay, let's get started. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for being on Zoom. Thank all the people that set Zoom up for me. I didn't do anything. Hey, okay, so my name is Dick Dillingham, and I've been here in the office from the beginning. And but the part I want to talk to you about is why am I teaching this? And I mean, you need to know that you're in the right place. Okay, so do I have any level of expertise at this? And the answer is yes. That I'm a longtime investor. I'm not a huge investor, but I'm a longtime investor. And over the next several weeks, we'll talk about that. But almost more importantly, in 1982, at Mike Brody's urging, I interviewed or auditioned to become a CRS instructor. That's a certified residential specialist instructor for the National Association of Realtors. And I auditioned to teach one class and one class only. And that was investing in residential real estate. So I've taught this class since 1982. So I've got a lot of experience, and I'm excited to be here with you guys, because one of the things we want to do is give those of you who choose to do this the opportunity to build wealth. Now, one of the things I've been doing, and so mine's going to be a little hodgepodgey at first. So I've been rereading this book, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. Now, when this book was written, it was written after The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, the Red Book. And each time a new book was written, they did a book tour all across the country and Canada, by the way. And I was on the book tour for this book. So I even went around the country teaching this book. But I hadn't read this book in a long time. So now I've reread this book, and I'm going to kind of make a switch. Last time we talked about this at all, some of you were in the room. I forget who the audience was exactly. But I said to you that my number one recommendation book was Cash Flow Quadrants by Robert Kiyosaki. I'm going to amend that, and I'm going to say to you, the only thing you really have to have out of that book is this. This is the most important thing in the entire book. Now, what does this stand for? This is the cash flow quadrant. Yes, yes? Yeah. What is E? Employee. What is S?
Self-employed.
Self-employed. What is B? Business owner. I? Investor. So those are the four roles. The reality is most of us will carry more than one role at any given time. But the goal ultimately is to move to the right. Because when you move to the right, you're going to be dealing with money that works for you instead of you working for money. And that's called passive income. Passive income is income that comes in whether you work or not. What would an example of passive income be?
Royalty.
Royalties,
Profit share.
profit share, rent, right? The rent that comes in, it comes in whether you have a job or not. It comes in whether you live in Dallas, Texas, or Austin, Texas, or Naperville, Illinois. It comes in, the rent comes in. Now, I'm not saying in some of these cases you don't have to do something to get it going. Dividends from stocks, right? Things like that, passive income. Now, what's active income or earned income that a lot of us are very familiar with? Commissions. Now, when I say it's earned income, if you quit working, what happens to the commissions? They quit coming in. They do quit coming in. Now, the reason this is kind of important is in this book, and I'm going to give you another reference in a minute, but he mentions it also, there is a little bit of confusion about being a millionaire. And the confusion rests between two different ideas. The two ideas are, I have $1 million or I make $1 million. Which one of those do you think qualifies you to be a millionaire? Have $1 million. I own $1 million worth of net assets because I can earn $1 million and be broke. Yes, yes? Yeah. Matter of fact, the authors of this book and another book, again, that I'm going to reference, will say to you that high income earners sometimes get a little naive about how much money they have. They don't have money, they make money. Because what happens when you make money? What's the next logical step after you make money? You spend it. That's right, you spend it. Now, if you make a lot of money and spend wisely and save wisely, you will be on your way to what? Having $1 million. So real clear, the definition of a millionaire is someone who has $1 million in net assets. That's assets minus what? Liabilities. Okay, so everybody clear about that? All right, so next thing, and this is real important, and you're going to need that. This is a self-examination. The title of this book, it says The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. And on the cover, on the front page, it says anyone can do it. Not everyone will. Will you? So can it be done?
Yes.
Yes. Does it take some commitment?
Yes.
Yes. And now I want to read to you quickly the 9 myths to being a real estate millionaire. By the way, I want to mention that too, and some of you know this. There's other ways to be wealthy. There's other ways to build wealth or become a millionaire other than real estate. But I'm only going to talk about real estate. Now make a note of this. You've got another training class on Friday from 11 to 12. And it's Lance Taylor on Friday. So Lance and I talked last night, and his is going to be a little bit different. He's going to introduce some other ideas to you that he and his team do to build wealth. He owns 18 residential rental properties. So he is very heavily committed and invested in that, but he's got some other ideas that he's going to, so that's worth going to. We're only about a 20% overlap between today and his. So we kind of orchestrated that. So Lance Taylor, very successful real estate agent and investor. Okay. All right. So what I want to talk to you about are the 8 myths of why people might not choose to build wealth. I'm trying to get them on one page here. Hold on. Every night. Yeah, thank you. I have it marked, but I have 5 pages marked. All right, so I'm just going to read them real quick. Here's some of the excuses, some of the obstacles. I don't need to be an investor. My job will take care of my financial wealth. I don't need to be an investor. My job will take care of what I need. That's a myth. What will your job take care of?
Your bills.
Your bills, your lifestyle, your lifestyle. Myth number 2, I don't need or want to be financially wealthy. I'm happy with what I have. See, none of us know how much we're going to need. And none of us ever think about how much good we can do if we had more. How much good we could do. Not how much more we would have, but how much more we could do with having more. Number 3, it doesn't matter if I want or need it. I just can't do it. Real positive attitude there. The reality on that is you maybe not be able to do it if you don't learn how. So ignorance is a real obstacle. So that's why it's good that you guys are here. Number 4, investing is complicated. Not true. The best investments require knowledge most people don't have. Wow, let's see, we've got some real estate agents in the house here. Wonder if that gives you a leg up. Investing is risky. I'll lose my money. I'll show you some, we're going to talk about some stories where you'll see where the risk is if it's there. Successful investors are able to time the market. Well, if successful investors are able to time the market, should you be buying investment property today? Would you say the market is near peak? Yes. So then you would think, well, I'm not going to do it now. Wonder, what if you had thought about that 3 years ago? Because if 3 years ago, would you have said it was near peak? Yes. And then you just missed out on 3 great years. There's more to it than just, well, you can't time the market. That's the reality. And then the last one is all the good investments are taken. That's not true. Never is true. Okay, so here's what I want to do. A couple of you can, if you didn't get this handout, pass that back to her. You need one. Who else doesn't have one? Okay. Let's have them back to Deanne. Okay. All right, so some of you have seen this before, and I made a slight change to it. So this is the way the money works in a typical deal, not a typical deal. This is the way the money works in a typical deal. Okay, so you buy a property, let's say it's $400,000. You put the minimum down, $80,000. You mortgage $320,000. By the way, why 20% down?
No PMI.
No PMI, plus you won't get a lender who will lend you a higher loan to value on an investment property. Now, you could do a higher loan to value if you lived in it first and then converted it later to investment property. That's an option. The principal and interest at 4% would be $1,528. The loan balance at the end of year 5 would be $289. The market value, depending on whether you look at 1%, 2%, or 3% a year, would show accordingly. Now, I did 1 and 2 the first time. I added 3% because here's a statistic for you that's in the blue book. We'll just call it the blue book, okay? Real estate has gone up 6.1% per year on median home price from 1972 to 2002. 6.1% on an annualized basis, 6.1% a year for a 30-year span. So I think 3% is relatively conservative. Now, in any given year, might it not hit 3%? That's possible, but over a period of time, 3% seems to be historically very conservative. And some of you will want to plug in 6% and see how that goes. So we see the rent, I showed the rent for 11 months. I allowed 1 month of vacancy. Principal and interest would be that 1,500 plus times 12. Taxes somewhere around 2.5%. Taxes are high. Those of you who are fairly new to the area, our property taxes are much higher than many other states, but we don't have personal what? Income tax. Property management, should you need property management, about 10% of rents collected. And then repairs and maintenance, which is a real roll of the dice. Some years it'll be zero, some years it might be $5,000, but year in, year out, $2,000, depending on how old the property is, all of the other stuff that we have to think about. So then there's this thing called depreciation. Depreciation is a non-cash expense. It's a non-cash expense. It's a tax benefit where the IRS is saying that over time, the improvement of the property, the house itself, will depreciate in value, when in fact, we're sort of hoping it'll go up in value, but as it gets older, they'll let you write off part of it. So that negative, excuse me, that non-cash expense will help create a better cash flow situation, okay? It will lessen a negative cash flow by showing a bigger loss, which will create some tax savings, which will net against the cash flow. So in this particular instance, your cash flow, your negative cash flow is $3,111 a year. All right, everybody just kind of see how that goes. You do not have to be an expert in this. You have to understand kind of how conceptually how it's done, but you don't have to be a CPA to walk through this. Here's what I want to talk to you about for a few minutes today. What are the other options here? What are the other options for the investor? Let's say we're all the investor's agent, and we've got this property that's either on the market or not on the market yet. And it could be purchased for $400,000. And we've shown a scenario where we're saying the investor could put $80,000 down, which is 20%. What else could the investor do? Flip it. That would be after, yes, but yes. So now what kind of property is going to be really good for flipping?
Purchase.
The one you purchase.
Below market value.
Below market value would be one, or one that has not been updated, where you will put sweat equity. You've done that a couple of times, right? Haven't you done? Have you not done that one? We did it on the house you bought, though.
Yes.
You're going to improve that house. Okay, if it's top of the line, make some sort of mental note. If it's cutie pie special, you probably don't want it because you're going to pay for being cutie pie updated. And then when you put a tenant in there, you won't recognize it in about 90 days. You'll need her to redecorate it. And if I'm gonna flip it, that's a lot of times where the margin comes from. Taking an unimproved property and then flipping it after I've improved it. So I buy, I fix up, and I sell.
And I actually bought mine because I got my commission for $5.95. And right now I could probably sell it for $8,
Yeah, but you put money into it now, haven't
probably
you?
75. So
Okay, all right, but you still got a margin. Yeah. Yeah, but when the market turns, that margin evaporates pretty quick. All right, so I could flip it. What else could I do here? What else should we consider, Jay?
Are you talking about like seller financing?
Seller financing, maybe, yeah. They might be able to finance the first or maybe a second on top of the first. Maybe they give me 10%, $40,000 on a second lien. Now I'd have to make sure that the first lien holder would allow that. But that's possible since it's a second lien and they'd be second in line. But that way I'd only put $40,000 down. Now, if I go from $80,000 down to $40,000 down, what's my leverage doing? Higher or lower?
Higher.
Higher. It's higher leverage. Okay. What's the lowest leverage I could do on this?
zero down.
Cash.
Cash. Could I pay $400,000 in cash if I had the money? And if I paid $400,000 in cash, well, why might I do that? What will happen that's good?
Cash flow.
The cash flow will go up. Why?
There's no expenses.
No principal and interest repayment. No principal and interest repayment. So the cash flow goes up. What else happens? I sleep better at night, right? Okay, but if I have $400,000, one option is to pay cash. What's another option if I have $400,000? Buy 5 of these. Could I buy 5 of these? Now take all the money that you're making at 1, 2, or 3% appreciation, and with the pay down of the mortgage, and multiply it times 5. You want this thing to happen fast. All it takes is money. Right?
This is sleeping pills.
And sleeping pills, yeah.
That lottery ticket that's.
Yes. Yes, all right. So all of these things are sort of possible, and it would seem to me, because if you kind of really study the numbers, after about 5 years, you will have created enough equity, if everything falls into place, where you can then go in and refinance or put a second lien and pull equity out of these 5 houses. If I could pull $30,000 or $40,000 out of each of the 5 houses, then that's $150,000 that I can use to invest in 2 or 3 more. But it's going to take 3 to 5 years to do that or longer. Mike and I had 4 houses. I think we had four houses, and we had a couple other good situations. And so we bought these 4 houses and we said, okay, in 3 or 4 years, let's roll these over into bigger houses or more houses by taking the equity that we've created and putting that into more houses. The only problem is 3 to 4 years later, those houses were worth 50% of what we paid. 50% of what we paid for them. We were called astute investors back then, but that was just a little hiccup. So what happened was we had to hold them longer. The good news was the rents did not go down substantially. So the cash flows were okay. We just couldn't take the hit of selling for a 50% loss. Matter of fact, most of those houses, the market value had gone below the debt. So if we had sold any of those houses, we probably would have had to write a check. So we held those houses about 10 or 12 years, as it turned out. But 10 or 12 years later, now they're worth 120 to 140% of the original price, plus the loan had paid down to a point where it was about 50% of what original. And so we did 1031 exchanges on those 4 houses and got 4 more. So we deferred all the taxes. So all of these things are kind of at play. Does everybody understand? But one of the biggest pluses for real estate is the potential to use leverage. And now you've just got to get a feel on how comfortable you are with being in debt. There was a great quote by Trammell Crow, the famous commercial investor here, lived in Dallas for years, did commercial buildings. He said, the way to wealth is debt. That's also the way to sleepless nights. So you've got to kind of balance that out and see what happens. Now, one of the real problems for a lot of us is we don't have the money. We don't have the money to invest. Let's take a look at this deal right here. And let's say I'm the agent and I kind of want to get involved in investing. And I've got this client who's got $400,000. And let's say I don't really have much money. You know, everybody, I know a few of you can identify with that. I can remember my first deal, but anyway, we'll talk about that later. So I've got the client, he's got $400,000 that he can invest. We've gone through the options. He says, okay, find me 5 of these and I'll put $80,000 down on each one. Okay, that's great. That's great. But what about me? What about me? I want in on this. And he goes, okay, how much money do you have? And I go, well, none. He goes, well, this isn't, you know, I mean, maybe as a finder's fee, I'll give you 5%. Maybe. But what do I have coming in? Where's it coming from? The commission. If I do 5 $400,000 deals, that's $2 million times 3%, that's $60,000. Could I invest $40,000 to $60,000? Could I buy half of one of the houses? So that gets me started, doesn't it? Yeah. Now, the first deal I ever did was not quite like this. It's a decimal place off. It was actually a little under $40,000. It was in your old neck of the woods, Richardson, West Richardson. And I think we paid $32,000 for it. And I mean, I was so nervous, I got 2 partners to go in with me. So I got 2 partners. There's 3 of us that have just bought a $32,000 house. We put 20% down, that's $6,500. We each put up $2,000, which was slightly more than my commission on the deal. But putting my commission in on the deal meant that I could get in on it. And so we owned it a third. We held it about 2 years and we sold it for $65,000. So we made $35,000 on the appreciation where we put $6,000 into it. That's 10 times. Okay. Now, one of the other decisions you always have to make as you go along is we sold it. We sold it. What would another option be? Hold it, accumulate some money or refinance, put a second lien on it and buy another one. Okay, so buy and hold, very different than buy and sell or buy, fix up and sell. Buy and sell or buy, fix up and sell is a cash play. So I might need to do that to get the cash to get one to buy and hold. Okay, buy and hold is a wealth play that builds wealth. Buy and sell creates cash. Everybody see that? Okay, so I want to tell you something with fantastic and unbelievable coincidence. Getting ready for you guys today, and I'm going through my emails. And one of my favorite things to do when I see it is to watch Andy Andrews, the author Andy Andrews, who wrote some books that I would highly recommend: The Traveler's Gift, Just Jones Returns, and one more. But anyway, he is a great author. And he has a podcast and he interviews people. And so this morning, literally, I looked to see who he's interviewing, and he's interviewing Dave Ramsey. Now, Dave Ramsey's written his share of great books, and Dave Ramsey, and he admitted this on the show, he said, if you just mention Dave Ramsey, everybody will go, no debt. That's his deal. No debt, no debt, no debt, no debt, no debt. Snowball effect, which is how you get out of debt. Okay. And but he's got a new book coming out. The new book is titled Baby Steps, Millionaires. And I go, that's what we're going to talk about. Baby Steps, Millionaires. And so he was telling Andy why he did it. And he said, one of the reasons I did it is I went around the country, and as I was talking to people and doing training and stuff, there was a whole bunch of people who felt like that the opportunity to become a millionaire was no longer available. And he goes, that's just not true. It is available, and it's actually fairly straightforward. And he said, in the book, which is coming out January 11th, 2022, so I can't recommend the book because I haven't read it, but I've read about 5 of Dave Ramsey's books, so I'll recommend it. Because frankly, here's the interesting thing. It's gonna be in a lot of ways, it's gonna be similar to the Blue Book. Because one of the things they talked about was the definition of millionaire. That's having a net worth of $1 million, not making $1 million, right? Because the make $1 million comes and goes. But having the net worth of $1 million, that's really it. Matter of fact, Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Cash Flow Quadrants and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, one time said, your net worth statement is your business report card. And I thought that was cool. But Dave Ramsey said something just about as cool today. He said, people need proof of progress to continue. Proof of progress would be periodic financial statements, yours or theirs, showing that your net worth was slowly but surely going up, which gives you the encouragement to know you're on the right track. Now, in a situation where you're starting with nothing, what do you think the first period is going to look like? Fast or slow? Slow. Good. We got a reality check there. But if you're on the right track, even as it slowly goes up, what's going to happen over time? It's going to speed up. It's going to pick up. So if it was on a graph, it'd be fairly straight line, and then you start seeing a little bit of uptick, and then you see a little more uptick, and then finally it would kind of become the hockey stick. Now, what causes that? Compounding. That's exactly right. Compounding. There's a great story in the book, The Psychology of Money, which is a good book. I would recommend that book also. And the author talks about Warren Buffett. And he says, actually, Warren Buffett is not the world's greatest investor. He's just the investor who's invested for the longest period of time. He's just invested. He started investing when he was 16 years old. And he's a buy and hold type investor. And so he's got some investments that he's held and held and held and held. And compounding has carried him all the way to where he is now. It's really kind of fascinating to think about. All right, so here are some of he's got 7 steps, baby steps, what he calls baby steps to being a millionaire. And I just wrote down a couple of them. First of all, start and have $1,000 in an emergency fund. He said, now, that's not enough, but that's a good start. So $1,000 emergency fund, that's step number 1, but some of you have already accomplished that. Now, by the way, if it's an emergency fund, do we use it? Only in emergencies, yes. Number 2, all debt gone except your personal home. All debt to be gone except your personal home. That's what his mantra is for all the other stuff. He said, here's the interesting thing. When all those other books talk about no debt, the reason I'm advocating no debt is to go to this book, because you can become a millionaire with a lot of debt. Now, debt along the way, okay, depends on, leverage. Number 3 is larger emergency fund. Now you need something. One of his favorite numbers to talk about is $20,000, but it depends on your lifestyle. It depends on all the things that you have going on how big that emergency fund is. That's the I can sleep at night fund, right? And then some of the others, he said, those have to happen 1, then 2, then 3, sequentially. 1, then 2, then 3. Once you hit those 3, then the next 4 can happen all at the same time. And things like putting 15% of your income to retirement or investments, pay off your house. Those are a couple others, but they don't come first. They don't come first. In the class we teach called Quantum Leap, which is a class on how to have a better life, we talk about the 6 key disciplines of life, and one of the disciplines is money, the money discipline. And one of the habits we need to get into to achieve money discipline is learn to live on 70% of our income and then save or invest the other 30%. And let compounding do its magic on that 30% year after year after year. Because what will happen over time is that 30% gets bigger and bigger and bigger because it makes more money. And you can take the money that it makes, and all of a sudden your 70-30 goes down to 50-50, and then goes to 30-70, where you're living on 30% of your income instead of 70% of your income, because you're adding the earned income from your savings or investments to it. So anyway, more than you need to know right now. Okay, so the books I've mentioned, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrants, Dave Ramsey's new book in particular, his Total Money Makeover would be a good book also. And then MREI, Millionaire Real Estate Investor, Psychology of Money. The podcast, I would recommend you find this podcast with Andy Andrews. It came out today. So just Google Andy Andrews podcast. And then it'll show you the historical people that he's interviewed, but you'll see Dave Ramsey right up at the top. So listen to that. No, thanks. Listen to that. It's about a 50 or 55-minute interview, but very, very good. The other podcast I would listen to is Think Like a CEO. Think Like a CEO, which is a Gary Keller, Jay Papasan podcast. And their last season that had 5 or 6 episodes was creating financial independence. And they talked about that most people, it isn't that they want a lot of money. What they want is freedom. What they want is freedom. They want the ability to be free of obligations, not only debts, but just, they just want freedom for themselves, for their family. And that number to create freedom is different for each one of us. But we need to, at some point, we need to figure out how much money do I need to feel and be free. Okay, so the other little feature I have thought out here is interviews. And so over the next several months, we're going to interview investors. And we have a special guy for the first interview. He's going to be our kickoff guest. I'll try not to overdo it, right? Okay. Anyway, but I've known Paul Bush for 23 years, 22 years.
You were my first.
25
So
years.
it's this 29th year.
29 years.
29 years.
So yeah, I was the broker on his first deal. He was a broker. We were co-ops, and little did we know. Okay, so Paul, come on up here. Come on up here. Let's give Paul a hand for doing this. So Paul and I had a little practice session, and he did great. I didn't do so good, but so what we're going to do is we're going to walk through, and I'm just going to ask him some questions, and then I'm going to let you guys ask him some questions if you want to, and anything that we ask that you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer.
Part of the deal, but go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about your very first investment property. Tell us when did you buy it? What did you buy it for in terms of its purpose, and just a ballpark of what you paid for it?
That was easy because I bought it in 1998 and I still own it, and it was condominium. So I wanted low overhead.
Richardson Crossing.
Richardson, it's Custer Trail, Richardson.
Oh, Custer Trail. Okay.
Just south of Arapahoe. And I actually bought it for protection for my father, because my father was renting at the time. He was entering that stage of life with health issues and all. And I needed rent protection for my dad. So I couldn't afford to buy the place, but I managed to make it work, just the same as you get creative. Bought it. It was a very lengthy purchase because it had a clouded title. So it took.
Was he on the, did you and he buy it together?
I bought it myself.
Okay, so you put 20% down.
Back then, let's say I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you paid roughly
Oh, that was 60.
60,000. So you put $12,000 down.
Right.
You also got a couple $1,000s for the commission.
Right.
Okay.
And
So did he live in it right away? Did he move into it right away?
We renovated it and he moved in. right away.
Okay,
So I was doing it again, it was fixed rent, so I could protect him against rental increases with apartments and so forth. And he lived in it until he passed away, so that was 2013. And then I started leasing it for, we'll call it market rate at that point.
okay. So you started leasing it, and along the way, the loan got paid off.
Loan got paid off, I kept throwing extra toward the principal, and of course had depreciation expenses, HOA expenses, write all that off, which is a benefit.
You managed it yourself.
Managed it myself. I still do.
Okay. So what do you think it's worth today? Do you think it's double what you paid, triple?
250-ish.
That's 4 times what you paid for it. So how much did you put down? 12 roughly. So, so there's 2 things I want to point out here to you also, although we talked about this a little bit. So a lot of people would say, well, you know, I only have $12,000 in it. Okay, now he put a little more in it, but let's make it easy. I only have $12,000 in it. So, you know, I mean, what's the big deal? Well, but how much equity is in it? $250,000. Whose equity is that? His. So how much money has he got in it? $250,000. So to think you only have 12 in it is a little short-sighted, because you want to look at opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is he's not maximizing his return right now. And he knows that, by the way. So it's not. And by the way, at some point you may say, I realize that, but I'm comfortable this way. That's good too. You don't always do. Matter of fact, in one of the books I was reading, I think it's in the blue book, I think it says, paying off your house is one of the worst financial decisions you can ever make, but it's one of the best personal decisions you can ever make. And it just gives you peace of mind. And that's what you've been comfortable, the word comfortable. But sometimes to maximize your return, you have to venture over into a little bit of uncomfortableness, not max. But what's one thing that you could do?
I did a cash out refi on it. and
Cash out refi. How much do you think you could get out?
Say 200,000.
I think so too. If it's worth 250, 20% of that is $50,000. That gives you $200,000. How much tax would be on that? None. No tax. No tax. That's a good thing. Okay, so you got this $200,000. Now, what do you think you could buy now? Well, what would it take? I mean, what would $200,000? Now, there's no more $60,000 deals.
No.
Do you think you could buy? You think you could find anything for 150 to 200?
Probably not. Not much.
Not much.
1-bedroom condo.
Well, you got a condo. Okay, 200 to 250. All right, let's say 250. Let's say 250. 20% down. $50,000. Okay, how many of those could he buy? 4. He could buy 4 of those. I think his cash flow would be positive. We'd run the numbers to see, but it wouldn't be negative much at all, because the interest rates are so low right now. That's one of the things that really helps on high leverage right now, because your interest rates are so low. So if you did that, then all of a sudden, the rents that you are getting now out of 1, now all of a sudden you're getting 5 bundles of rent and 5 properties appreciating, right? So are you thinking about that at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, since you and I spoke.
Okay. Everybody see how this works? Everybody understand so far? Okay, let's go to the other one. I like this one. This was a surprise to me. So tell us about your other investment venture.
Partner and I had done, if you've been up to Broken Bow, you know what Broken Bow, Hochatown, Broken Bow cabins like. In 2018, I had a friend that grew up in Texarkana, very sharp guy. He said, hey, you're the real estate. He's used me for real estate for years. He lives down in Austin now, but he said, you've got the real estate knowledge. I've moved with you multiple times. I call you, even though we're in another city. They were in Oklahoma City, they were in Austin. Anytime they move, they call me. So he said, I need your eyes on this. And I want to know if you want to go in on this with me. But basically what he wanted to do, he'd already done the groundwork. And he said, I want to go in and create an LLC, which we did. Wanted to build separate cabins, each with a separate series. So we got a series of investors, invest cabin 1, 2, 3, and make it manageable for their down payment, their investment, show them a return on if we decide to rent it, and a return if, when we decide to sell it and what that might be. And the numbers were phenomenal, and this was in 2018. So you can only imagine what they are now. And I brought examples on what those cabins are worth now because we ended up selling. But
So you had about 400,000 in them.
we built cabin around 1,800 feet all the way up to nearly 3,000 feet.
Okay, so they're different
cabins,
cabins.
right? Different prices.
Now, by the way, let's go back to this. So how much money did you put in?
The share, we're gonna round it off. The shares were about 30,000 each, $30,000 each, and we needed there were four shares sold. You could split one with somebody.
Per unit.
Per unit, right. So $120,000 total to build a cabin. That was it, out of pocket. That's furnished, turnkey, ready to rent. And that, the 120 had 20,000 in reserve in case we needed it for any extra.
Okay, so of the 120, did you put any cash in?
Yes.
Okay. Did you put an equivalent amount, or did you get a special?
I had,
because you were the agent?
So we had, he and I were the A-share investors setting it up. And so he got a larger percentage for coming to me with the deal, and I got a percentage for being the eyes on all of it. And then, and also setting up my cousin, who was an Oklahoma broker, to sell them for us later. So there was A-share and then there was B-share. What we were selling were B-share. And, I brought the example, but the B-share, the very first one we sold on a B-share was, it was a cabin that, let me see here. I'm shocked at what it's worth now. There's a client of mine that was looking for an investment, and I said, okay, if we had all the spreadsheets for this, we did everything online. He never met with us. We did it all virtual, and we did it with multiple people. We could have kept this going, I wish we had, but I'll tell you that story later. We showed him on paper that just at we needed, I think 8 or 9 days a month rent to break even. And up there, the rental 50% or more each year. And now it's higher than that. But so that's all we needed to break even. So we showed how we cash flow off rent.
So that's like the worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario. And that's what everybody wants to know.
Can't sell
I'm out
it,
of pocket.
so we can rent it, and all we have to do is rent it 9 days.
Right.
A month.
And then we're break even.
Okay.
And we're good. And we're counting on appreciation at that point. If we sell it though, then we showed him some higher numbers. On the rent, the lowest ROI for his investment was over 10%, I'll put it that way. And that was running some worst case scenarios on marginal increases over that 8 or 9
If you held it and
If
rented
we
it.
held it and rented it.
Okay.
Selling it, which we did after a year, right after we built it, we put it on the market for sale because we didn't know what was going to happen. This was 2018, finishing in 2019, not knowing what was going to happen with 2020 elections, the economy. We got great pricing, sold it. He made 27.5% on his money.
In 1 year.
And he bought 1.5 shares in that cabin.
Now, you kept it over a year.
Kept
Why?
it. It took us a year to build it, so we had a little over a year total.
Why was that important?
From the accountant, talk to the accountant about.
Long-term capital gain.
Yes.
If you sell it in under a year, it's regular income.
We had,
Short-term capital gain is taxed at the ordinary rate. Even a year and a day, you get long-term capital gains, which is very beneficial.
Right. And we had an attorney / CPA that was advising us on this.
Okay.
To set up the LLC.
And your original partner, he was the builder, wasn't he?
No, we went to a
Hired
builder.
a
The builder did the financing for us,
Oh,
which was
okay.
interest only until the cabin was complete. Very low payments. We weren't coming out of pocket much.
Okay.
Then he was holding the note if we decided to keep the cabin for a length of time. We got all that worked out. It was in writing. It was
He
contract.
would hold the note.
We hold the note. Yeah. This guy was very
Seller
wealthy,
financing.
very wealthy. There was a lot of cabins up there. As far as I know, we were the only ones with this deal. So it was a very,
So was it a great deal?
Yes.
How could it have been a super great deal?
how long?
Still-
Because these cabins have gone up 250.
That's now probably worth
300,000.
double what you sold it for.
I checked the one the very first one we did. The gentleman that bought it sold it a year later for $200,000 more than what we sold it down for, which was already a
So the
substantial.
first guy's made 100,000. A year later, that guy made 200,000.
Now, the A-share side of it, so if you do something like this, the A-share side, just so you know, so our B-share on this particular cabin, B-shares made 27.5% ROI, which I was a B-share owner. A-shares 42.16%.
Wow.
So what's my total? 42 plus 27, 69% return on investment. Wish we'd have done more. My partner was too busy with work and didn't want to continue it, unfortunately. So we stopped right there. We did 3 cabins.
So any questions so far?
Where's the next broken bow?
Exactly. We live about an hour from there and we've been going there over 25 years. I can remember when Hochatown had nothing but one little diner. That was, I mean, there was nothing up there.
Okay, so who would be in the best position to know where the next broken bow is going to be?
Somebody that,
Where would we start? With you.
if you know a little
And network.
backwoods somewhere that nobody's going to that you absolutely love, buy property.
Yeah.
Especially if it's close to water.
Buying property is not a bad strategy, no matter where it is, right? They don't make any more of it. So anyway, so that was a good thought. So here's a strategy. Now listen, so let's go back. What I said, there's 2 big strategies overall: buy and hold, or buy and sell. Buy and sell, what are you going after? What did they do? They bought and sold. Okay, now they were prepared if they felt like they had to buy and hold, because they had worked out how much rent, how many days a month they needed to rent it. But there is a deal that says, hey, look, this is a great return for us. Let's not, bulls make money and bears make money, but pigs never do. Right? I think my dad told me that. But the good things I like about it, the special skill set of the builder, who then later became willing to be the financer, a builder. So if I'm in the market today, so here's what it's made me think about. You got 2 investors you're going to be working with.
This afternoon, I'm going to, between 2 and 2:50, believe it or not, we found a property. So we're looking at 1 at 4 o'clock.
Now, okay, so let me give you a tip on that. If you find it, okay, what's harder to find, the investors or the deals? The deals. So the investors who are not willing to act immediately are not qualified.
Yeah.
You can't, it's too hard to find a deal to have someone go, well, give me a week to think about it. No, won't be there in a week. You had that story on one of your deals, didn't you?
It's just even like, I showed a property yesterday, first day on the market, priced at $469, 4 acres, little house. They already have an offer on it. And my people are like, well, I know you feel like you're pressuring them and they feel pressured, but it's just the way the market is.
You got to
right
tell
now.
them the truth, right?
Yeah.
The truth is, if I call you up and I say there's a special deal that's about to come on the market, can you act immediately? And if they say something like, well, I work during the week, I have to wait till Saturday. Nope, that's not good enough. If it's there, fine, but I'm going to go on to the next investor. I'm going to go on. You got to find people who are in the blue book. Gary Keller talks about a story where he hesitated and he lost $100,000. Then he talked about learning his lesson, and he got another opportunity a couple of years later, and he acted quickly, and he turned around and made $275,000 on that one or something like that. But you have to, in a hot market. And by the way, what properties are involved in hot markets? It's a hot market for every underpriced property there is. You want a hot market? Just underprice the property, right? So if it's a steal of a deal, you aren't going to be the only one looking at it. But I like the builder thing. So I'm thinking about the guy who did my house and the people who have construction and design capabilities. And I'm just going to ask the builder who did our house, by the way, so you're doing all these redos, how many properties do you own? You know what the answer is going to be? More than likely? Zero. See, that's the thing that impressed me about the short Dave Ramsey podcast with Andy Andrews. It impressed me about reading the Blue Book again. And it's kind of impressed me that I talked with Paul, and Paul's been in this comfort stage, and he's coming out of it a little bit, deciding there's more I can do. And, we're gonna look up in about a year or 2 years, and that 4% interest rate, by the way, that's the interest rate for investors. But in a couple of years, it could be 6.5 or 7. Now some of the advantage is gone. Not all, but some of it's gone. So making hay while the sun shines right now really makes a lot of sense. So one of the things we're going to talk about is how to find the money, right? And I think because you're the eyes, that's why you got the opportunity, even though you put some money into it. If you didn't have any money, he'd have made a way for you to get into it.
He was going to include me. This is what you bring to the table. He's going to include me as an A-share investor, whether I put money in or not. That was just part of the deal, because you're my eyes, ears, the market. By the way, at the time, since everybody knows Hochatown now and they're ready, we were the first cabin, to my knowledge, to do the Chip and Joanna Gaines white ship lab, throughout the entire place, decked out with high-end furniture. The road less travel is in the cabin if they haven't changed the name since then. We were told by all the agents up there, they'll never sell, they'll never rent it. And we're like, you don't know who's coming up here. It's Dallas people. And so when we put it on the market, sold it like that, and sold it for a high number at that time, they're all like, how did those guys do it? They're doing something stinks, something's wrong, something. Well, the second cabin, same thing, went again. Third cabin, same thing. We didn't do the Chip and Joanna Gaines on the third, but same thing. So you bring value to the table. The market. Even if you don't know Hochatown, you can pull numbers. It's in our MLS now. Broken Bow is. But you bring value. That was worth money to me, just being on the A side. I didn't have to invest in it.
Right.
I still would have made 42% on that deal, just being the issue investor. Okay. The other thing too, which like this client this afternoon, he's a referral for another investor client. But the thing that, especially, I'm aging out, sad to say, right? Aging out. I'm working with my clients' kids now. And I'm hoping I don't look too old. When I talk to them on the phone, they don't know I'm as old as I am, and they don't check me online, right? But the thing that got one of my clients interested in buying is I'm showing his daughter properties, and I'm talking to him about, why aren't you investing right now? Why aren't you investing in these things? And guess what? He is now. He's already got pre-approved. He's starting to look with me. So I'm going to have more of those conversations about, what are you guys doing with your money? Where's your money sitting? If it's sitting like mine and it's tied up in a property, I used your example with that same client. This is how I'm going to take money out of my investment property and turn it into one property into 5. And I'd love to do it this year. So I'd love to do 4 more this year and do it this year. And this is why. So when you start explaining the numbers between that and this book right here, because believe it or not, I did this and I started reading again. And I went through some of the myths but you don't tell them you're reading it right out of the book. And you choose some of the talking points, all of a sudden the light bulb.
See, people who aren't investing have a reason for not investing. They're afraid. They don't think they're knowledgeable enough. They think it's too hard. It comes right out of the book, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And you've got to say, no, here's the deal. Here's the way this will work. But you've got to be the trusted advisor. You got to be knowledgeable. Yeah, if you're not knowledgeable, he wouldn't have gotten any opportunity in Broken Bow if he wasn't knowledgeable. And you're not going to get an opportunity either if you're not knowledgeable. And if you don't share that knowledge with people, and you got to talk it up. So how many of you in here, show of hands, how many of you in here have at least one investment property? Raise your hand if you have at least one. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's give Paul a hand. Thank you, Paul. I'm going to read you just a couple of things in closing. So this was an article I had seen some time ago and thought I might be able to use it, and now I'm using it. And the name of the article is How to Become the Go-To Agent for Real Estate Investors. And I'm just going to read you the headline of about 7 items, not the paragraph part of it. Here's the things you need to be able to do. Learn the language of real estate investors, like net worth, like financial wealth versus financial net worth. Number 2, know their investment goals. You need to know what they're looking for. You need to know how much money they have. You need to know how much urgency they can put into it. Identify the timeline of real estate investors. How fast do they need to or want to or can invest? You need to be able to do some of the math. You do not need to be an expert, but you need to be able to kind of go from point A to point B. And so that's, Paul was giving you the idea. He's using that little model that you guys all have a copy of now. Number 5, do your market homework. Paul mentioned that. You've got to be knowledgeable about the market. Can we typically see a property that's undervalued and know it's undervalued? Yeah, we really, I mean, most of the time we can. If you can't, you're not previewing enough and you're not studying enough. Use your connections. So that was a good example. He used past clients, and then he used the daughter and the son of a client, and then got the client involved in investing again. I'm thinking of builders that need property. I mean, everybody, when you start looking at what your cash is earning on your investments, and you figure out what the risk is, whether it's market risk or any other kind of risk, there's not a lot of great investments with a reasonably low amount of risk. And then the last one is be an insider. Join a real estate investor group in your area. So yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I was going to lunch, and we're at the corner of Coit and Campbell yesterday. Anybody know that? Coit and Campbell. And I'm driving, my wife's in the front seat. I said, oh, take a picture of that, right there. She goes, what? I said, that sign. And she goes, what sign? I said, the little sign right there on the corner. And so it says, oh wait, she emailed it to me. I know what she did. Yeah, here we go. So right here, and you can't read it, but there's the sign right there at the corner. It says off-market homes for flippers and landlords. Off-market homes for flippers and landlords. Now, do you honestly believe this is going to be an opportunity? I don't either. But do you believe it might add to your education by calling the person? I think it would add to your education. You know, the redoers around town, if you don't know who's doing the redo in your area or some of the areas you know, there's a lady, you know, Sally Batt used to be doing, she used to do flips, and she had a partner. And then in the course of looking at properties that were being redone, I've come up with 2 more names of people who do redos, including the guy who did my house. So that'd be 3. Those people all should have properties, and I'll guarantee you they don't. They're too wound up in their business of gutting a house or leveling the lot and building a new one. That's what they do on a self-employed basis, though. What do they do on the passive side? Zip, right? You know that world. You know that world. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so all right. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Thank you guys for being here. This Friday, remember, Lance Taylor, 11 to 12. I think you'll find it very interesting. And after that, I'm going to be interviewing our guests for next Tuesday. And next Tuesday, our guests will be the Real McCoys. So the Real McCoys have about 13 properties. So we're going to find out how they got started and what their goals are. And what did they do for cash? Do they have more cash today than they did then? Are they holding? Are they fixing up? Are they flipping? What are they doing? And how did they find these properties? So thank you guys very much for being here. I hope it was helpful. By the way, if you have not read this book, and if you want a discount copy of it, come see me. But only if you're going to read it. Only if you're going to read it. You don't have to read it. That's up to you. But if you want a discounted copy of it, let me know. Thanks, buddy. Here. Good.
There you go, Shara, on my calendar right here.
It's easier now that I've broken it down.
What is
Thursdays. I have a live listing. Either I or someone else.
You actually heard it.
Stuff like that is always.
There you go, that's a good one. That's very true.
Me too.
Yeah, Bob.
Thank you. Yeah. I didn't know what to expect. So that's kind of-
Yeah,
the date was still 18 months ago.
And I wouldn't step it.
It's crazy. I used to make that drive. That's the idea. You know, when you make it all the time.
You're used
normal.
to it.
If you don't do it for a few months, you do it. It's ridiculous.
Plus I have, again, how we know what to catch up. Sure.
Yeah, we were. Somebody give me your money in 12 months, you'll have 20% back on it.
Hey. I mean, I don't even review anything. Exactly. That's the part. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a contracts class where I go. Here's the
Hey, how's the world tour going?
The next.
Well, it's a lot, actually. It's a lot.
So
It's
you
scary.
have to fill in blanks.
Good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're still important.
Yeah, it's good.
To under contract.
Anything we can do for you?
Yeah, I mean, we got a whole bunch of stuff.
I'm happy.
I'm glad to see you here. This is good.
Oh, this is gonna be awesome.
This is serious.
I didn't even know he was doing it every Tuesday, so I just marked it down for next week. So I definitely.
McCoy's on great.
Oh, you know it. They're amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
See you later.
Bye.
I have relationships.
I didn't even want them to come back to me. Yeah,
Yeah.
they get every 10 days. They get,
That's
it's
awesome.
like, how does data generate? What I lose is. I was really surprised to lose it more.
6% of my business are either people I know or people that I've done business with. And they send me another. I love that business. Saves me on market.
So that now, this is.
Yeah. Yeah, I have.
Thank you.
We bought our first rental about that time. We bought it for $140. I know I can sell it for $280. And the other rental was our house, and we just kept the house and bought our new house. That one we bought for $140, and I think easily $325, $330.
Just so. Richardson. I mean, you look at that stuff. You don't
Where's the magic bubble that tells us now?
That thing's still recording. I was actually shut it off.
All right. My OCD is kicking in.
Oh, no, that's okay. All right, this is what the coach is gonna class, right? Okay. I should have just left my stuff.
Well, she usually sits up front,
Oh,
so
well,
we
yeah.
all just kind of gather up here.
Right here. Are you new?
Yeah.
Oh,
How about
okay.
you?
I am. I'm Kiara. Nice to meet you.
Kiara, I'm Denise.
Nice to meet you.
I've been doing this since August, but August 27th, but I just, I'm still, I still consider myself new because I haven't
Trust me, I understand.
put myself out there yet.
I understand.
This is my shoe. I didn't mean to hog all the, so if you want to move in.
No, that's fine. Where's his office? Do you know? I want to get that book
Okay, let
from
me
him.
see. I think he's over here. But if you
And we
want
need
to
to get a
ride-
key fob from that.
Yeah, they're all like in this far corner. Right?
As I get to the bottom.
Hey, Jenny, I'm gonna call that girl.
It's just for you, right? So, and so I might have this alongside of some cheese and nuts. I keep them in the fridge and yeah, they last for a very long time. Snack, I'm gonna have an egg. I may see if I've got some crackers that I like. Sorry. So yeah. So yeah, that's, you know, I've already had my shake and I'm drinking my fast. So it's a nice, to the top. It's to the top. So yeah, that's.